The age-old question for every business improvement manager is, how can I develop the skills of my people in Lean and Six Sigma and whatever methodologies I'm teaching them to be practically applied in the workplace, but do so at the lowest cost possible? And it's this conflict between cost and trying to get competencies built that creates problem for us. Now, recently we did some work with a company in Australia and we experimented with a different way of approaching it. And it was prompted by a conversation we had with them and some limitations about getting access to people. And it turned out pretty successful. And I'd like to share that approach that we took with you so that it gives you another option to look at when you're thinking about doing this. In order to explain that, you need the context. And the context I can explain by showing you and reminding you exactly how we approach the Lean Six Sigma training. Each of our course participants to do the Greenbelt training undertakes 4 modules of training. And those modules are delivered from the bottom through towards the top, as you see on the screen. So they begin with a Lean project leadership training, then they get into Six Sigma specific to the DMAIC project leadership model. Then they do failure mode effect analysis and then some traditional project management. And at that point, they've got a fairly comprehensive green belt package of skills. Then they get into the black belt training where they get into quantitative decision making, which layers on top the advanced statistical analysis and quantitative methods behind Six Sigma. And then we get into some of the design stuff around quality function deployment. But we apply that in a situation where we're trying to identify what to work on in the business. So that's kind of the background of the training modules. The philosophies that we employ in the AOBL websites is twofold. Number one, that the mechanics of tools and methods can be learnt in self-paced environments. And what we're talking about here is tools and specific functions can be taught online through reading, through watching videos, and through a little bit of drilling. But the second part of this is where we get into the application of that. So we're developing competency. And the application, and this is the second philosophy of ours, the application is learnt in a face-to-face, hands-on environment. So what we're not doing is saying, listen, online training and anything associated with teaching mechanics is a complete replacement for face-to-face human interaction. That's not the case. The application itself still requires mentoring so that the people understand the nuances associated with actual workplace application. Now, the way that we're approaching the teaching and the certification and the application follows 3 options now. The third option is this recent one, but the first one I'll explain is this. And this is how we originally approached it. People would go into AOBL and they would complete 4 modules of training, primarily Lean and Six Sigma, the first 2 modules. And then they apply that in a workplace project. So it depends very much on the business to give them time, to give them the project to work on. And then once they've done that project, they then get into the process of certification. And the certification should drive competency and should drive value generation. And we've kept that in mind as we've developed the process for certification. Now, there's another option. And the option is this. It recognises the situation where someone can't get the time, they can't get the project to work on, and they need some external support to do that. So what we get them to do is do the training online, so they learn the mechanics. Then they come to a 3-day simulation-based masterclass where we run a simulation, and they have to run through 2 projects. They're given a Lean problem and a Six Sigma problem. And the simulation replicates all of the nuances that happen in the workplace, with the exception of things like you can't get access to people and time. But the actual problems associated with trying to solve the problem and deal with people in a facilitative environment are replicated in the simulation situation. They then get into the certification process. The third option, and this is the one that recently emerged, and it's kind of cool because it has a couple of benefits over and above the others. It's where they begin with the Lean project leadership. So they go online, and in the case of the experiment we did with this recent customer, they allocated 2 days specifically to do the online training. So everyone got in a room, they all logged on, and they did the training together. And at the end of the 2 days, they've completed the Lean project training and learnt all the mechanics. Then what we did was we brought them together and we run a 1-day Lean simulation. And that Lean simulation puts them in a position where they have to solve a Lean problem in a complex simulation. At the end of that, they've now got a package of tools that relate to their certification process. They then left and they did a workplace project, and the workplace project was a lean-oriented project. They then came back and did the second part, the second module, which was the Six Sigma project leadership piece, and they get together for 3 days together, just like they did with the lean. It takes a bit longer because it's more complex, particularly from an analysis perspective. They then complete the online training together as a group, and then they come together and do a 1.5 day Six Sigma simulation. And that's where they're given the same simulation, but it's approached from a different angle with a different problem. And the problem is variation based, so it drives the application of Six Sigma tools and methods. Then they left and they go and do a project that focuses on variation in the workplace. So they're really doubling up on, all of the application pieces. They're learning the mechanics in a place where it's self-paced, the lowest cost possible. Then they're only utilising the classroom interaction where it's necessary to drive application and competency. They then continued on and they complete the final 2 modules and get into the certification. Once they've completed this whole process, because they've done the simulation-based work and done multiple projects under those conditions, what happens is their certification happens overnight. It's very simple to do. They just got to sit an examination. So that's pretty much an example of how you might approach it with that third option, which I really like, and I think it's pretty much a low-cost, highly effective option in getting people to apply stuff. The black belt level continues on from the green belt in the same way it always has, in that once they're certified as a green belt, they then can go on and pursue the black belt certification. The black belt training or modules can be undertaken at any point in time. So there you have it. There's some thoughts about how you might approach business improvement from a skills development perspective, but doing it at the lowest cost option possible, whilst developing competency as strongly, as most effectively as we can. For more information, jump on the website aobel.com.au/business solutions.